So, good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody to the December Indicators of Behavior call. My name is Charlie Frick from Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab. I'm the chair of the IOB subproject within the Open Cybersecurity Alliance and your host for this call. Glad to have folks able to meet us up. I know the end of the year is always a tricky time, especially since we switched to quarterly meetings. But today won't be a lot of screen shares today, but I will be giving you guys some updates from what I can on some of our current work in IOB, our next steps where we're going in 2026, and give some very rough insights from our operational pilot. Additionally, I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about Open Cybersecurity Alliance as a whole, and then open up the floor for some general discussion. So for starters, thought I'd talk a little bit more about the Open Cybersecurity Alliance as a whole and help make everyone aware of some of the challenges that the Open project has had and some of the ways forward. As some of you know, and some of you might not know, IOB works under the Open Cybersecurity Alliance, which is an open project run by the OASIS standards body. And as an open project, all OCA and its subprojects do not require membership in OASIS in order to participate in the projects. That said, OCA itself does require some level of membership and sponsorship for OASIS to still be able to allocate resources and manage the effort. And unfortunately, the current project governing board will have no members left after February of 2026. And we do not have, and we, OCA, do not have enough sponsorship to continue paying OASIS to be an open project. Now, OASIS, I'm also for those who might not know, I'm also on the board of directors for OASIS, and this is a topic we've discussed heavily. We can't have OASIS dedicating personnel and financial resources to an effort that isn't paying, but we didn't want to lose momentum or lose the great development that's happened within OCA. So I've worked with the board of directors as well as the existing PGB for OCA, and we've come up with a way forward. And I'm going to give you some high points from that. We are still going through the official channels to communicate this broadly across all of OASIS, but since everybody here has been very active participants in not just IOB, but other Open Cybersecurity Alliance efforts, I want to share what I can in the greatest spirit of transparency. So we are not going to be able to keep Open Cybersecurity Alliance as an official OASIS open project because there is no sponsorship. And without sponsorship, there's no one to pay for the staff that have been supporting OCA that work for OASIS. We've worked pretty hard to try and be able to keep the low to no cost assets that OASIS has provided. And what we've gotten some agreement on is we're going to sunset OCA as an OASIS open project. Now, with that doesn't mean everything's stopping. What that does mean is when sponsorship ends, OCA will no longer be listed as an OASIS open project. And we are going to look over efforts within OCA where there have been repositories without contributions or activity for, say, the last 12 months. And we're going to, in best faith, contact those maintainers and let them know that we are going to move those into a read-only mode on the GitHub unless they are willing to, have any plan to start making contributions. We will keep the GitHub alive for projects that have actively been working. And we're going to start an effort that we're calling a OASIS community effort under the Open Cybersecurity Alliance banner. Now, what does that mean? It means that we won't have a project governing board, and we're not going to have very much access to OASIS staff, such as Claudia and Kelly and company, to help manage things for us. We're still in discussions on being able to keep access to the OCA Zoom, and the Slack is at a free tier, so we believe we can maintain that for OCA subprojects as well. But any new project, it does mean that there is not going to be formal financial support from OASIS. We will share as much infrastructure as OASIS will share infrastructure and capability as best they can. And that includes the GitHub, Slack, and ideally access to the Zoom. For a new project to join the OCA, they would need to make a one-page document to make their case on why it's relevant to OASIS standards and the expected outcomes of a project. And that would be reviewed by the OASIS board of directors in order to lower the burden on OASIS staff, since OCA will no longer be providing financial support. We are minimizing the labor resources that get used to keep OCA alive. If accepted by the board of directors as a project that could participate, the applicants would need to provide 2 maintainers who would be the primary points of contact and ensure continuity of engagement. And that would then be vetted. That plan would be vetted by the board of directors and approved by OASIS staff for the technical committee to make sure that there's no conflict of interests. And then those projects must sign an OASIS contributor license agreement and operate under Apache 2.0 distribution license. There will be no council resources available to make custom CLAs. So if a project is uncomfortable with the OASIS CLA, they would not be able to participate as a OCA community effort. And these projects would need to be self-managed by their leads with no expectation of staff technical support from OASIS. But OASIS would reserve the right to conduct periodic reviews to ensure that there's ongoing community activity and that everything is in compliance with OASIS governing procedures and aligned with the OASIS mission of promoting open standards. And basically looks at twice a year, OASIS would review the OCA community projects to ensure that they're still active, and it would be designated as an archival candidate if it has 6 months of inactivity, defined as no updates or commits to the GitHub repository, no messages or engagement on any communication channels, such as Slack or listserv, and no communications with OASIS staff or the OASIS board. If something is an archival candidate, OASIS will contact the maintainers and provide 2 weeks notice. Failure to respond or provide a reasonable objection within that time frame would result in the project being archived, moved to a read-only status on GitHub, and no longer having access to the Slack channel or the Zoom. Any archive project will remain publicly accessible for reference under the existing open source licenses. Now that said, there are some other options. Existing OCA subprojects that align with an OASIS technical committee are free to request adoption by a technical committee at the TC's discretion. So if, say, a project wanted to be adopted by a TC and follow those TC's governance rules, as long as the project and the TC were in agreement, they are free to do so. We're also, by participating in the OCA community, OASIS is marketing and communications team still has primary authority for OCA related promotion and event branding. And if a member wishes to sponsor an event like the CAS Plugfest or showcase interoperability under the OCA branding, using multiple OASIS standards, OASIS still gets to be able to celebrate and promote those events under the OCA banner. So it's not the greatest news on earth, but this was the best solution we could come up with due to lack of a sponsor or project governing board for the OCA. I imagine there could possibly be questions. I'm happy to help field those as best as I'm able to. So I'll pause for a second. Okay, I'll take silence as folks not having a significant question. Oh, Patrick, sorry, you came off mute.
Hey, thanks. I might have missed this, the existing portal that we have that's going to be maintained.
So for the interoperability village?
The OCA portal. The overall OCA thing that has member, not to get an actual portal.
The groups.io. We're not shutting it down yet. We're trying to find out get agreement on the costs for the groups.io portal. If we do have to shut it down, we'll work with all the current maintainers on how we can help transition those mailing lists. I know we'll keep the Slack. I don't know if the listserv and shared calendar will survive yet.
Thanks, sir.
You're welcome. Okay. Are there any other questions? All righty. Well, in that case, I wanted to take a moment to share, and this may be a little bit shorter call than normal, but I wanted to share some insights from our operational pilot for indicators of behavior. Unfortunately, as we get towards the end of the year, the public release process is moving a little bit slow, so I'm not allowed to put up charts or give you hard numbers yet, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what we did and give you some initial insights into what happened. I can say that the pilot was very much a success. We partnered with the Hudson Alpha Institute for Biotechnology earlier this year to deploy IOB bundles in their production environment and assess what impact they had to their cybersecurity operations. Towards this effort, we built out two different use cases, which were IOB bundles for a couple different threat scenarios. The first was deployed in Hudson Alpha's pure production environment, looking at a data exfiltration use case, where we had a set of 3 behaviors. Once I have the public release done, I could go into more detail on those 3 behaviors. But what we did was we identified those behaviors, detections, correlation logics, and playbooks for how to correlate the threats and notify an operator. And we built those STIX bundles. Once we have public release done, we'll be able to share both STIX bundles with all those artifacts. And we then worked with Hudson Alpha to integrate those detections into their SIEM and the correlation logic into a SOAR that was deployed in their environment. What I can say is, from the very beginning, we've talked about the idea of sharing a set of multiple behaviors because, one, these are reusable representations of threat activity, and a single behavior may have many false positives. That's not malicious, but by correlating a set of behaviors, we could identify threat activity with very low false positives. And over 2 months of collecting data, what we saw in our deployed use case in production was thousands of times that a single behavior was detected. When just a single behavior was detected, we did not notify an operator. Automation just kept track of that and logged that in the background. And then hundreds of times, we maybe saw a pair of behaviors correlated to one another. And for the use cases we deployed, we didn't deem a pair of behaviors to be sufficient to notify operators. So again, that was monitored by automation and just kept in the background. Then when we saw 3 behaviors that were well correlated within a time frame, we said that was enough to indicate malicious activity and would automatically notify an operator. We saw, for use case 1, we saw a couple of times where 3 behaviors were correlated, and all of those instances were due to dedicated red teaming efforts to recreate the threat. So we had 0 false notifications to an operator, and 100% of our notifications that we did send were due to actual, in this case, emulated threat activity, but would be the same if an adversary had done the same actions. So that's pretty good success rate in production. And then what I can say is roughly our second use case, they have a cyber lab, and that was a data integrity scenario where we had somewhat more destructive actions inside the behaviors for that bundle. And roughly about 10 times the number of, being in a lab environment, there's more random activity happening. We saw about 10 times the number of behavior observations and 10 times the number of correlations. But again, anytime we hit the high correlation, 100% of those were due to emulated threat activity. And we have not detected any threats whatsoever. And I can say that the time to notify an operator was within 5 minutes of a set of malicious activity occurring on the network. And these were more living off the land style attacks, slightly harder to detect based on kind of current data breach reports and best practices. One could estimate maybe about 14 to 30 days to detect this type of thing manually, if ever detected. And so 5 minutes is a pretty dramatic improvement for that. We're all very excited about these results. We're actively working with CISA and with Hudson Alpha to get a TLP clear version created of our reports. Once we do, we'll be sharing that report publicly, but then also building some best practice guides and slick sheets, what have you, to better tell this good news story publicly throughout 2026. But Hudson Alpha's found great value in deploying IOBs. We'll also have those STIX bundles available for sharing through the IOB GitHub page once we have full release. But wanted to let you guys know that there were some slowdowns with some of the challenges with government shutdowns this year, but we were able to execute this pilot and it worked as we intended. And we saw some great value for doing this type of behavior-based threat detection and being able to share it in a vendor agnostic format. So very happy to be able to let folks know that. We also, on our APL team, took advantage of several of the tools that we've been developing and sharing over the years with the IOB project. Used a lot of our graph analysis to review the IOBs, and then also utilize the STIX modeler fork that we put forward to help build out these bundles. And so thought I'd start there and just say that it worked. This is the first time somebody who is not APL, to my knowledge, has deployed IOBs and tested them this way. I know we had a couple smaller runs in the CAS plug fests, but I don't think we've ever had an end-to-end translate the IOBs on someone's production into real detections and correlations, and then go actually execute emulate those emulated threat behaviors in said environment, as well as capture data on regular day-to-day operations and seeing if they would fire. So this was about the best we thought we could see for the very first use, and we're looking to take that forward. Open it up for questions. Patrick, I thought you might have some.
Congratulations, sir, to you and your
Thank you,
team.
sir. Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Having built a few reference implementations I couldn't give away, it's good to see some progress. Good to see this kind of progress.
Thank you. We're glad to have it. Are there any questions on the pilot results before I take a little bit of time to talk about where we're going in 2026?
A quick follow-on question. Are you going to be publishing these findings, results, in something that we could share to help evangelize?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
So yeah, Patrick, once I have release approval finished, there's going to be a TLP clear version of the report that will have almost all the data in it, except for we have to just redact any proprietary operations data that might be in the background sections. That'll be publicly available. And then over the year, next year, we will be making a few smaller bite summaries of what we did and why it was good and how it helped. And then we'll also have the full STIX bundles publicly available to go along with all of that.
Great. Excellent. Thanks, sir.
Absolutely. So just thought I'd share. Oh, and apparently I need to have a talk with Oasis because we're going to wrap up in 10 minutes because the Zoom client has gotten changed and it's going to kick us out. So my apologies for that. I'll get that fixed before our next call. Anyways, for 2026, we're looking at we talked at the last meeting on a decision object that could help define the triggers for different courses of action. We're going to be doing some reference implementations that involve that, but it's also under the guise of looking at how we enhance the indicator of behavior fields to better support the use and integration of artificial intelligence for both the detection and classification of indicators of behavior. And it will allow us to begin working on a reference implementation for the needs of a common repository of IOB elements, because we think that both of those are going to be needed to put forward some efforts and recommendations on how we can more rapidly grab community inputs and generations of many behaviors and behavior sets and kind of keep things structured and organized. And so as we work on that throughout the research efforts in 2026, we will also still be working as much as possible to open source and publicly release all findings and capabilities through the OCA banner. I'm going to stop talking there for a minute since I only have about 8 minutes before Zoom kicks me out, and kind of open the forum up for Q&A. So I want to see if there are any kind of questions on where we're going. I am going to take that as no, and that's absolutely fine. So I just want people to know that IOB isn't going away. I imagine several other of the OCA sub-projects that are still actively working are going to keep moving forward. For those of you on some other efforts, we'll be trying to communicate through those channels. I'm trying not to speak for other projects since I'm in my IOB hat here, but I know for some of you out there, I owe you some communications with more specifics on other efforts, and I'll be giving those ASAP to you. But if there aren't any other questions, I just want to thank everybody for their support this year. I think we had some big successes, particularly at the CAS Plug Fest and with the IOB pilot. And just proud of this team and this community and the feedback y'all have given to help drive us forward. And I'll be distributing the minutes through the Slack and the listserv, and we'll just do our best to keep things alive in 2026. Patrick.
Just happy holidays, everybody, and
Yep.
looking forward to next year.
Roger that. Well said. Anybody else?
Hi, this is Jyoti.
Hey, Jyoti.
Sorry, I I didn't realize this was Eastern time, so I was
Oh, I'm so
gonna
sorry.
join at Pacific time, and then I realized the meeting was going on.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
So
Well,
I missed major part of the meeting, but I'll go look at the meetings.
yeah, I'll send you the notes, and then also I want to make sure I get you some of the notes from one of our previous ones because I think while it's not our number one focus in 2026, we did have some ideas on malware behavior analysis and malware malware reporting with sticks from our September meeting that I think you might particularly be interested in, and want to make sure we get those to you.
Thank you so
So,
much.
absolutely. So, with that said, just thank you guys very much and happy end of 2025, and we'll see you in 2026. So, thanks everybody. I'm going to stop the recording.